Thank you for coming today. I'd like to thank, to begin with, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Meritrust, who are sponsors of the Forum Series, and they provide us the opportunity to bring in a distinguished series of speakers, both locally and nationally, who are always willing to share their insights and their experience and their expertise. So we're grateful for our partnership with Meritrust and always appreciate their support. We try, as part of the Forum Series, to bring in 2 speakers each semester. We try to bring in a combination of both local and regional speakers as well as national speakers. And I kind of feel like today we've certainly covered both bases. We're pleased to have with us today Don Carey. Don is the founder of All Things BBQ and is going to share his experience and expertise in terms of starting a business that started locally and has grown to national distribution and scale. In 2009, Don founded and started All Things BBQ by opening up their retail store down in the Delano district on Douglas. By 2014, All Things BBQ was listed in the Inc. 5000's fastest growing companies list, and they appeared on there at number 1,232, I believe it is, which quite an accomplishment in a 3-year period. So Don's here with us today to share some of the lessons that they've learned. Don is an interesting company with All Things BBQ in that they operate both bricks and mortar with a retail store, physical location on Douglas, and a large internet distribution side of the business as well. So welcome, Don. Thanks for being here with us today.
Thank you, Mark.
Get started. Just tell us, before we get into some of the more detail, just a little bit about how All Things BBQ started. I know you had another business going, and I know you told me once initially you thought All Things BBQ was really going to be a hobby. So how does a hobby get to appear on the Inc. 5000 list?
Well, that is a very good question. Actually, we're in the manufacturing business and have been for 31 years. My background is construction equipment manufacturing and specifically directional drilling tools. We build drills and accessories for, well, as we still do. And in 2007, my vice president of operations he built a smoker in our plant, and then another and another. He had that background in his experience. And it was really for the shop and for friends. And then we showed up at the Kansas State Fair with that product in September of '07, and then we showed it at the Outdoor Living, it was the Lawn and Garden Show in those years, in '08 and '09. And each year people would say, hey, where can we buy this product? Where can we learn how to use it? Where can we get the supplies? And we were at a place in our lives where the kids were grown, gone, and my wife said that would be fun. And so really it was her idea to start the store. And so that is now it is our classic joke at the end of a long week. How about that little retail barbecue store? And so because of the brand of smokers, we build the Yoder brand. And we do pellet grills, charcoal, and offset wood. So really we cover everything except gas. And in things for the backyard, through competition, restaurants, mobile. And that was sort of the impetus and the reason we got into the business. And then we, like anybody, we took a trip to Kansas City, the closest place that has stores that are similar in nature. And we visited, well, there were 3 at the time, and we visited all of them. Most of them, you would get the feeling they wouldn't really talk to you. The smallest one, that was 4 years old at the time, we told him who we are, what we were doing, and he was glad to share his experiences, which was kind of fun. So that is how, that's how the business got started.
Interesting. So walk us through just the startup process. I mean, this wasn't really funded by your existing company. You did this on your own, and
so there would be a marriage of the two. We provided the capital personally into for the startup, because there's always got to be that. You always have to have dollars to start a business. and the majority of the dollars were moved into inventory. You have a little bit of, we struck a deal down in Delano, rented a space, and we spent, I think, a meager $7,000 in renovating the space and getting it prepared to move into. And about the same amount of money in basic point of sale, IT, telephony, and the things that you need to, to be able to function.
So your initial product, how many products did you start with? You opened up your store, what did you put in it?
That is a very good question. I would say someplace in the 400 to 500 SKUs probably. It's amazing how fast SKUs pile up. Sauces, rubs, accessories, you probably accounted for 80% of that. Fuels, so pellets, charcoal, wood, and then the 15 to 20% of the SKUs were grills. So we had the Weber brand when we opened, still continued to sell that, and along with the Yoder, that was pretty much what we had when we opened the store.
And initially you started out as purely bricks and mortar?
Purely bricks and mortar. Well, that's not entirely true. We started with a website that it was an e-commerce site. It has a shopping cart, and we're the second iteration of that. And it does make me laugh because the idea that if you build a website that people are going to find you and they are going to buy from you is not true. But one thing that is really important, if anyone here is thinking of opening a store, one thing that people do is they shop your store online. They live in town or in easy driving distance. Let's say you're a natural place for them to come for the product that they're seeking. And it is just not uncommon at all that people will hop online, shop your store, see what you have, and then decide if you are interesting enough to come and visit. So the first year in e-commerce sales was probably, it was in the hundreds of dollars, hundreds. So,
how many employees did you start with?
3.
And today you're
15, probably.
And so when you opened, were you manufacturing your own grills at the time?
Yes. Yes, we were, and primarily we were building wood offset smokers, and man, that is the product that we're building, and it's really because of the store. That was in '09. We started August 1st, and then by 10, we recognized an opportunity to enter the pellet cooker market, and so we went off down the road to R&D a unit, and we brought that out in the fourth quarter of 10. And so it has been an interesting test ground for our manufacturing. So retail and manufacturing happen to live together very nicely there because you get firsthand experience as to what customers are really after, and you get firsthand experience about what they think about the product that is in your store.
Did you have a background in retail?
Absolutely none. One of the in-laws said, "There is no future in retail." That was that quote that will stick with me forever. And but it wasn't like, oh, this is it. This is how we're going to make our living. We're going to retire. We're going to do whatever with this. This sounded like a good time. And so you just enter the market and you start with some marketing, local radio, TV, and get your name out there. And
so, when you started, what was your advertising concept? What was your marketing concept? What was your first idea to get the name out?
Okay, so really it was radio, and I think we were fortunate enough to have some people fall in our door, and believe me, if you open a store, you will know every station in town, and with hundreds of miles actually, and they will find you. And we really were fortunate to work with some people that got us on air at the right place, helped us kind of design the story a little bit. We knew we knew what we were about, and we knew what was going to be the unique proposition that we would offer, but then articulating that and putting that into a script. And we also did television. And television, to me, still is the best medium for a local retailer.
So how do you evaluate advertising effectiveness?
That is probably the single most difficult thing that you can do. There's certain things that you can do in advertising where you can measure clicks, of course, in TV now, or newspaper. And newspapers, I didn't mention that. Newspaper used right can be effective as well. But you can use separate phone numbers. Like you can get a bank of phone numbers, and you can, so if someone calls, and they'll track, the call center will actually track the number of calls that come off of that particular ad. And then anything that you do in direct pieces, direct marketing, whether it's mail or if you're working with other vendors in town who will be passing your flyers out, then you can measure that. Other than that, and I will say, early on, people would walk in your store, I saw you on TV, I heard you on the radio, and it's just again and again and again. 5 years in, you don't get that same, the percentage of people that are seeing you for the first time. A lot of those people have seen you for many years before they wander into your store for the first time.
Any sense of how much repeat business you get out of your customers?
Well, yes. I mean, we have, our real core customer comes back to us, 6 to 12 times a year.
For just product replacement, sauces,
right.
rubs.
Sauces, rubs, fuels, accessories. Then we have a saying that we have, we've developed just through being in the business, and that is that the more you cook, the more you cook. You have a gas grill at home, and then you say, well, I don't want to get rid of my gas grill, but I want to add another fuel type. It could be charcoal, pellet.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about just the manufacturing side before we get into just the bricks and mortar side versus the website. Describe in general just the challenges of running what we would call a vertically integrated company, from manufacturing on up through distribution to the end customer.
Well, manufacturing, and we talked about this casually the other day, is the single toughest thing that you can be involved in my opinion. We take one of our products, our backyard pellet grill, which is our most predictable volume, and it's our highest volume product. And you load that shop with humans and with parts and with cash Monday morning. And by the end of the week, Friday, and it's not that you have it finished product every single day, it needs to find its way onto a truck toward a customer, whether that is a dealer type or an end user type, and cause the money to flow. And we are vertically integrated. We're art to part, so we do all of our own design, all of our own R&D. That is, whether that happens to be computer controlled, it has a program that runs it. We do all the design, all the testing, and right through the manufacturing QC.
And Yoder, how did you pick Yoder?
It's where we are, and it's good for locals. And interestingly enough, I was really challenged by that by a gentleman who said, I just don't think that's a great name. I just don't think that's a good name. Well, if you go to yodersmokers.com, the first thing you'll see is a 1-minute video called Forged by Iron. And one of the things that we are honestly a handcrafted company. So those products and that whole thing has worked together very well. And it served us well both nationally and internationally.
How many grills do you manufacture a year?
This year will be around 7,500.
Interesting. And from a facility standpoint, have you ever thought about locating manufacturing anywhere other than Yoder, manufacturing different points?
We have not. Not yet. Probably the most sensible thing for us to do is to build the product and put it on a train and find a distribution center in the East Coast or the West Coast if we want to take the time of delivery and reduce it to a minimum and keep the cost out of the product. One of the things that we talked about the other day that I think is probably, it should be interesting to folks, is that manufacturing the type of product you do and doing it here, it's hard to be a two-step company where so much in the way of distribution or manufacturing goes to a distributor, which then goes to a dealer. For us, it's all we can possibly take to share the margin with just a single dealer. It's not inexpensive to manufacture in the States.
No, but no other, you look, manufacturing overseas is simply not an option.
It's not an option for us because it's not who we are, and our vision for our company and for our customers is that they're getting something that really has pride and care put into it. They can pick the telephone up and they can call us almost any time, 7 days a week, and it builds the kind of culture and the following that we desire.
How do you take a look at the models? Who you design your own grills in-house? You have a production department that looks at the design and the model changes for the grills?
We do, and fortunately the changes are very. And we've been building this particular pellet grill for 5 years, and with modest changes, which are just things that we learned about the behavior of the cooker over time. And there's been some slight internal changes and there's been some software or firmware changes, but has remained the same and probably looks like it has significant life in front of it. And then what I would call the traditional offset, I mean, I don't know when it'll get redesigned, if ever, because they are what they are. They cook extremely well, and if that's the style of cooker you want, I don't see changes coming, let's say that.
So when you've got a product like that, do you account for that in your initial pricing, that there's a low turnover, low replacement value to it?
Well, one of the interesting things about market competition is that you have to keep your pricing, we refer to it in the same area code as the competition. So there are a lot of people who are building offset smokers in particular honestly, out of their garages or on their farms, and they were in the dairy business and now they're building cookers. And some people will compare your product to their product. And so you have to, I'm saying it puts a ceiling on what you can charge for it. I will also say that there's an end to that. Our product has become very well known. It has won on, it's interesting, but on barbecue's biggest stages. And as it becomes more and more known, then that price barrier becomes less of a problem.
So how do you avoid the problem of selling on price? I mean, you've got competitive grills out there, and you're definitely in a different price segment. Mm-hmm. So how do you sell on anything other than price?
Well, there's nothing I've ever done that we've ever sold on price. So it was in our nature and in our culture long before we got into the grill business. But these cookers, they're lifetime. I mean, you're going to literally cook on them for life. So, the price you pay once. The cost is what it means to own it for the next 20 or 30 years. So you have a great story there. You have a great reputation. You have best customer service in the industry. And so we don't get pressed on prices often. In the wood offsets, never really. In the pellet, there's plenty of imports that are cheaper, significantly cheaper, half, but from 40 to 60%. And if you can stand in front of them with the grill, and that's getting less and less important because the number of folks that are sharing their experiences through the forum and on various websites they've made a buying decision almost before they call.
So do you take a look, do you concern yourself with market share?
No, not at all. And it's interesting because this industry, through the HPBA, which is the Hearth Patio Barbecue Association, and they have gotten tremendous participation from grill makers across the country. You take Weber, which I know is approaching or somewhere hovering around $1 billion annually. They are privately owned, and they have no reason to share their model numbers or any of their sales, and they seem to do that. I haven't seen the data, so I don't know at what level, but we know that last year there were 17 or 18 million grills sold. So we're not going to impact market share anytime soon. And quite frankly, it is a little bit about the people who really are passionate about cooking, and it can be for any number of reasons. You know, maybe they've just become that person in the neighborhood. We recently took an email from a guy, and well, he put it on the forum, and he just said, "I want to tell you my story." And he buys a grill, and he said, "I turn it on," and he said, "the neighbors all show up." So now the neighbors are involved. And now 2 more neighbors on that cul-de-sac own one. And so that's kind of how it really goes.
Interesting. Let's spend some time on the bricks and mortar versus online and the differences and the challenges. So you started out as a bricks and mortar building, and what was your vision? Was it initially to expand on that, build a bigger store, or what? Or was it just we'll see what happens?
Survive. That's the first rule of business: is to survive. Because like anybody, I created a little spreadsheet, and it didn't take very many rows or columns, and just said, these are the income stream potentials. So if we can kind of do this and this, and so as that grew, we had no idea that it would grow at the pace that it's grown. I mean, that is for sure. But let me talk to you about, because I hope there are people here who are thinking about starting a brick and mortar business. Business, I shouldn't call them failures, but right now businesses are being terminated faster than they're being started. And that's unique to this country. And being in brick and mortar, being a real tangible business, whether it's product or service related, there is an opportunity for anybody that wants to work. I mean, there is no question that there's a great opportunity there. And some of the ideas that we had going into this is that, first off, if you're going to sell a grill next to all of the, an Ace Hardware or Lowe's, Home Depot, it doesn't make any difference. Wherever you can buy a grill, you have to differentiate yourself through knowledge. You have to be helpful. You have to love people. That would be the first requisite. If you don't really enjoy people, I wouldn't recommend it. But enjoying people is something that we really, really have had a great time getting to know our customers, helping them just wherever they're at in learning about their backyard cooking or just replacing a grill, whatever their needs are, down to a $5 bottle of saucer rub, showing the same level of concern and care about the people. We haven't mentioned, part of our earliest idea is that we were going to do cooking classes. And, it's like a lot of things. The delivery of that is tougher than the conversation. But we are, in April of this year, we will complete 4 years of that. This weekend we have class, and we'll have 50 people in Friday night, and then 40 people in Saturday morning and 40 in Saturday afternoon. And that creates a significant buzz. A lot of those people are repeats. And so those types of things create the energy in the store and the relationship that you're building with your customers. And word of mouth will follow. It took us, we opened August 1st of 9. And it was Q4 of 11 where we noticed significant number of people saying, I was referred to you. My friend has this, and I want one of those.
So customer service seems to be a dominant theme for you in terms of quality and just taking care of your customer. Easy to do in a bricks and mortar setting, in a physical, tangible retail setting. How does that concept come through in an online portion of the business where there is not the same ability?
Well, that's a fantastic question, and a question that we are, that we're getting ready to really cross the bridge into the next level of a website that is really given to e-commerce. Of course, you'll still be able to use that site to understand what's in our store, to learn more about us, but to get into the e-commerce side, one of the things that, of course, we sell our Yoda brand online. So that gives us an edge because it's not a drop ship item. We wouldn't drop ship that for someone else. What I think is that creating content that when a person comes to your site and they study the product, whatever the product is, that if you give them valid and tangible content that answers, we know what questions, you have to understand and anticipate the questions that a person will need answered in order to make a buying decision, right? To go from I have an interest to I'm going to put it in my shopping cart and I'm going to buy it. So content can be anything from well-written, just well-written content. Photos are critical, and definitely doing video it can be incredibly important. It really will let people under the hood of the product. If you're talking about small items, which we do an awful lot of, sauces, rubs, marinades, injections, cooking accessories, etc., a lot of that stuff is shown, and we're seeing sales traction online because those products are used in our recipes on our blog. And so you do recipe development, and I think that's one of the other things that will tie it all together and cause us to stand apart from our competition online is that we offer more than just a product.
So if initially your goal was survive, what's the objective now? You've got online presence, you've got bricks and mortar presence. Do you separate out your advertising? Do you have a specific focus on advertising for your retail store versus your online?
Yes, and I will tell you, I mean, we're on the cutting edge of that. I mean, this is, the big spreadsheet for marketing, advertising dollars. Don't want to get those two things confused. So, advertising dollars for this calendar year, for the first time, is separated into what you would say would be local or brick and mortar oriented, and our online.
Have you seen any results from any of this yet?
Yes, we have. We have found that there is. We found several places I would refer to as accelerators that you can press your foot on and get results, that's a little addictive. Because business people work pretty hard to find cause and effect that you can say, I did this and this occurred, and this being sales, because at the end of the day, that's why businesses exist.
So have you gotten involved in all of the various tricks involved with Google search and how to ramp up your hits and everything?
Okay, so I will tell you, let's just talk about e-commerce and websites and being in the business. In 13, I'm not sure the 14 numbers are available to us yet. In fact, I think they're not. But about mid-14, it was published that there were $263 billion worth of e-commerce in the U.S. in calendar year 13, of which Amazon owned about 20%. So my point there is that e-commerce is absolutely huge. Being that's a fact, there are providers out there today that if you want to build a website that is an e-commerce site, there are people out there that can help you do that. In other words, there are platforms. BigCommerce, Magento, vCommerce, and Magento and vCommerce, if you can think of them, Nike and North Face and Target and Eddie Bauer, they're all on those platforms. And if you want search, for instance, within your own website, Nextopia, we use Nextopia, and it is an engine in the engine that allows you to, for instance, I do not sell Traeger grills. They are a well-known pellet grill. People come to our website and they say the word Traeger shows up. We return them what we want to return them in the search. So that, and there's just many loyalty, a rewards program. You don't program those, you buy those. There are people out there that do that, and the market is large enough that they're just absolutely expert at only one thing. Our current website is a second generation, but still on its initial platform. The URLs for SEO are horrible. And so you need to understand that. We have people on staff now, so it's a new day. But we're working on a new website, and Magento is the engine. And anybody that's not familiar with them, you can look them up. An amazing company, and I think it's going to make a super significant difference because the SEO drives you to your placement in Google, right? I mean, that's how you get there.
So you mentioned Magento a couple of times, and the North Face, the Nikes using those platforms. They're cost effective for the small business as well.
They are, because companies like BigCommerce, maybe even more cost effective, because our investment for this turn is significant. I mean, if you were a startup business using your own money, you would probably say, that's maybe a little too much. But there are other platforms out there that they're flat reasonable. In fact, if you value your time, because your time, your people's time, it is so important, and you need to use that toward your customers, building content, things that you can't hire out. No one will know your product or your service better than you do. So you're money ahead to get with a group of people who have some experience, and let them guide you towards some platforms and research that, and allow that to, all that programming is done. The other thing that I've noticed, and this is quite obvious actually, is that if my company needs something, every other e-commerce company needs something. When you have a Magento and they have, I don't know how many programmers, it's going to be addressed. For us doing our own programming, which is what we've done, it just stacks this list deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper until your programmers, in their natural life, they wouldn't get it done. So that's another big consideration.
So did you start out trying to program in-house, build your own platforms, or did you just outsource from the get-go?
Everything, yeah. No, and I'm telling you from experience, everything that we have currently, every website, we have built it in-house. And especially in e-commerce, anything that's content heavy, but e-commerce in particular, I would never, ever recommend that.
Bad experiences that you know of?
I not only with myself, but I can tell you of other people, even local businesses that have 7 figures and closed their doors, invested in their side. And they could have done it for a quarter of that and been making money.
So is it fair to characterize the differences between those two channels as your online business being lower margin, higher volume, and your retail store being higher margin, lower volume?
I think if you look at the industry, the answer is obviously yes. In our business, I think they're going to hold pretty true, and we will see how we feel about that as that business grows up. Because one of the things that we will do is we will sell product on on the website that we won't stock. I mean, it's not, in other words, they're brands that we won't put in our showroom, but they will drop ship, and so, it gets a lot easier when you don't have it in inventory. Although that's a huge opportunity for us, is because we inventory deeply. If you order from us, it's not uncommon to have it on a pallet, bill of lading, stick on it, and a truck under it that same day.
So you mentioned you've got a wide number of SKUs. And so I know just having sauces and rubs versus expensive grills, high quality grills. How difficult is it to sell high quality, expensive products over the internet versus a retail store where you can touch and feel?
I'm not sure we have the experience there yet. I think though, there are enough people in the major brands and the expensive products that have been in business long enough as the manufacturers. Enough people have reviewed them on various websites, wherever they've done that, that I think people are quite comfortable buying expensive products online. We've had some, it catches you off guard when that's not normal to you, to have someone buy something that's, you know, say anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000 in a single SKU. But I think that'll become normal.
Interesting. So growing that fast, one of the normal problems is just capital. You've got to finance inventory. You talked about the process of turning a grill into cash. So do you evaluate CapEx, capital expenditures, for online versus your retail, your bricks and mortar differently, or do you look at a return on either one?
We definitely right now we look on the return as a whole. By 16, we will separate those.
Are any material differences that you know of just between the two now, between your capital expenditures online versus your retail?
Not really. It's like in all of our businesses, it's the same. We struggle with the exact same thing in that we share, like G&A, we share G&A across all 4 companies. And so, you know, as I think I explained this early on, but like our website is very, very useful for people, and I want to say local, but listen, people shop our store regularly from Oklahoma City to Kansas City in a circle that big. So there's huge value. The better your website is, the more likely somebody is going to hop in their car and drive 3 hours to you. So here we are building this e-commerce website, and you think, okay, this is an e-commerce business, but it will definitely impact how people see our company, and it will influence brick and mortar sales as well.
So your website drives traffic to your store?
Drives.
But is that just a byproduct, or did you figure it would work that way?
No, I would never have thought that. I'm probably a few years too old to have believed that somebody within 15 minutes would have said, I'm going to go hop online and see if that place is interesting before I drive. No, I'd have hopped in my truck and driven over there.
Don't show your age here, Don.
Yeah.
I'd have done the same thing. So your website actually drives traffic to the retail store. It's almost a test for your customers.
People are figuring out what's in the store, and you know, it's hard. I say it's hard to know. You know, Mark's talked to me enough to know that I'm an entrepreneur by nature, and I fly at about 10,000 feet. You know, once a month I'll dip down, I'll look through the P&Ls, and if nothing is, nothing is glaring, you know, it's off to the races again. So I don't study. You know, I don't study, and you know, you can certainly do this. You can study where people are coming from. You can kind of identify, you know, how the physical range or proximity, and then what they're clicking on, what they're looking at. That I haven't been that interested.
So you don't really, or anybody in your team really doesn't look to see if there's really a different profile for an online customer versus.
Right now there's too much low-hanging fruit to allow us to be off, you know, dealing at that level. There's a point in time as businesses mature that you definitely start having, you know, I mean, you have somebody who is studying that, you know, at all times.
So are you storing your customer data to data mine later, or?
Oh yeah, and don't take me wrong, again, there are certain things about our customers that we keep in front of this. What they own, their frequencies, are they local, are they people who buy online? Because you begin to share, whether you're sharing a recipe with them based on, what they've done with you, or sharing a product with them based on what they've done. I mean, we do use it that way.
Interesting.
The data is, there's a future in your history.
Sure. So have your perceptions of your customers changed any over the years?
That's a big question, because going in, you just have ideas. And what I find is that our customers in this business they run the range. I mean, there is no demographic. If you said to me, is there a specific demographic of people that make up the majority of your business, I would have to say yes to that. But everybody is a solid prospect. I mean, if you're interested in cooking, you're a prospect for our store.
Do you have any idea how far, even though you have an online presence, I think you mentioned earlier, people come from Oklahoma City, Kansas City. How far away is your customer base really, or is it fairly geographically centric?
For the brick and mortar?
Even for the online business.
Oh.
It's all over.
I mean, from Miami to, Gig Harbor, Washington to, New Hampshire to San Diego. I mean, just absolutely everywhere.
Okay. I know you're getting into outdoor kitchens now. Mm-hmm. So did you envision that earlier? How did that part of your business come about? Or it's still a fairly new segment of the business?
It's new and growing, pretty well. The interest is, again, and I think this is just sound advice to anybody at any level, product or service, is that know your product. Be able to be confident to look somebody in the eye and be able to answer their questions, be able to actually anticipate what it is that they need to be asking themselves. An outdoor kitchen environment in Wichita, Kansas isn't unique, but it is a small percentage. So if you've been cooking on a cart-mounted grill that's all you know, and now you're thinking about building a kitchen, it will be helpful if somebody can help you expand your thinking while you're designing it. Otherwise, you'll just have a nice-looking cabinet with a grill, right? Because it's what you know. So product knowledge and confidence and timeliness in getting back to people is the key. And I think that business is going to be very significant.
So what are some of the metrics you look at on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly? What are some of the metrics you use to judge the performance of the business?
Well, my business plan, it's still a fairly simple plan. We look at last year. I look at a rolling three, and you look at it and you look at the behaviors that occurred in the previous year. And don't take me wrong, we look at it. I mean, like right now, I am having firm discussions about April and May. They are important months. And there are certain things that we need to do at appropriate times to maximize that. But I'm looking at my top 4 categories. I have, grills, accessories, fuels. Those are my top 3. So, the grills themselves and accessories, which just is amazing. That number was staggering. Fuels, things to cook with, and then then the sauces and rubs fall in right behind that.
Are there any differences in sales patterns between the two? Any seasonality differences, cyclical differences between online and retail?
I can't answer that. I cannot answer that. The behavior of my Yoder pellet cookers selling online versus in the store are pretty similar. Those types of cooks tend to cook year-round. That's not entirely true, but let me just say a larger percentage of those people are more committed to their backyard cooking.
We've still got 10 or 15 minutes here. Why don't we take a few minutes, see if there are any questions from the audience, any topics we've covered that you want to address further, or topics we haven't covered?
Don Hackett, a prof here at Wichita State. Number one advice, if there is a person here with a brick and mortar operation who's looking online, number one piece of advice, one more time, even if covered.
I would say if you do not have a e-commerce website and you have brick and mortar, I definitely find a mentor, a friend, somebody with some experience. Number one, that would be my number one thing. Somebody that you can talk with. There are several forums and places you can go look, but talk to somebody you can look in the eyes. Don't think that you can build your own website. WordPress with a shopping cart is not okay. And if you're going to invest in it, you need to know the key elements of finding natural ranking. There's just a lot to know. I did not articulate that very well, quite frankly. That business is so big and it is so viable that from every little nuance about the home page, about the product page, about the cart page, everything, there is a right way and there are thousands of other ways. So getting connected with somebody that is really that really has experience will save you a fortune. You'll deploy your site much more successfully, and you'll find black ink much sooner.
Thank you.
I guess, I don't know if you went over it, but do you know how you're going to grow next? Are you going to focus on online? Are you just going to push forward both full force, or?
Okay, so that's a fantastic question. I mean, we are expanding our store significantly right now. We're weeks away from having another 10,000 square foot of showroom. Sometimes I have a struggle following my own advice. But when we are in backyards and we're doing kitchens, and kitchens are complicated. Let me say that. The involvement, everything about it, and the obvious thing to go with an outdoor kitchen is patio furniture. And I've seen all I want to see about us doing the hard work and somebody picking up the grapes off the ground. So patio furniture is in our future. But what our intention is, and Erica, that's a great question, because what we really want to do to solve the problem of tight manufacturing margins with a U.S.-based product is we want to open stores in, the next store we want to open will be in Kansas City. And we want to do that, and it'll be a subset of what we're doing now. But it will have a strong, strong emphasis on the Yoder brand. I mean, there's a potential for 2,000 units a year there easily. And then fuel, sausage rubs, accessories, and if we did nothing else, that would be very successful. And the reason that we want to do that, it's not if we can, but moving into that, getting point of sale, remote operation, getting all of that tied down, we'd like to see ourselves in a 500-mile radius, Dallas to St. Louis to Denver, these huge MSAs, because we can predict and control our manufacturing volume. That's that's the biggest value of all, and a normal dealer of our products will do super well to sell 200 units of ours a year, where our store will sell 1,200.
So while it's getting over to Chris, so expanding your retail presence, your physical retail presence, that's going to stretch your manufacturing capacity. You have capacity there.
We do have capacity, and when you are building and you're building to a schedule, you don't stop. It's a tsunami if you stop. So you don't stop, and so it allows us to make decisions about. It makes us better decisions about the volume we're going to make and how they're going to get sold. versus now you become a little more reactionary because we have hundreds of people that want to sell our product. And we're not really inspired to do that for a variety of reasons. It would be much better on the bottom line for our businesses as a whole to have more control over the retail channel.
So my question is about your process in developing new products. How do you, when you're designing a new cooker or new product, how do you come up with that idea and make a decision of what products to develop?
You would think that that would be an easy one for me to answer because one of my great weaknesses is product. I love product. I like the technical aspect, what's under the hood. The grill business is very simple by comparison to what we have done for the last 3 decades. But honestly, if you find yourself in a place where we're at right now, we don't have great need for a new product. Sales are going along okay. We're working on manufacturing, working at streamlining, lowering costs, dealing with paint. I mean, all kinds of issues to just become better at what we're doing. We have one product that is in R&D right now. It's the second of such. I mean, it's the second iteration. And we were saved, actually, by a good friend of ours who runs a very successful restaurant, and he's amazing. He's a nationally known barbecue guy. And he came and looked at it, and he said, "How wide is that?" I said, 52 inches. He said, "It better be 48." I said, "Okay, we'll make that 48." And he reminded, he just reminded us of something simple that we just had not taken into consideration. But, we think that product will be good for us. It's, it'll be aimed at caterers, restaurants. There are backyard people who do it, because there are a lot of backyarders, if they get hooked and they want capacity. Maybe it's just Little League in their church, but they still want capacity, and so that's a little bit about what this product is about. We do, and I know we have time limitation, but custom products for us is a very interesting. It's kind of a love-hate. We don't need it, but we love it, and we make some of the neatest products you can imagine. I mean, we've built products in our past that weigh 50, 60,000 pounds, so our material handling capability is unlimited. And so we can build, if you want a 53-foot long legal length smoker, we'd love to build it for you. That's what, we're just looking for people with budget, but all the various things that we can do, but really in product, we will come back to product with a vengeance. When our pellet cookers hit around that 10 or 12,000 units a year, we will begin looking at methodologies there. I mean, we know what to look at, but we need the volumes and the cash. We need it to all come together and make sense. So probably 24, 36 months from now.
My question is about your team and how you've kind of found and developed employees through the 5 years that you've been in operation.
Well, that's a fun question because my wife, my daughter, and my son-in-law opened the store. My wife and my daughter are there most every day. My daughter's the operations manager. She graduated from WSU with a psych degree, so she thought, I can do this. So I sent her to have a way with some financial accounting classes, and but so she's the operations manager. Since then, one of my boys has joined us, and he's really e-commerce marketing, and has done a very, very nice job there, and actually allows him the time to be involved at high levels with. We send him to IRCE conventions, and so I mean he actually has time to grow his own knowledge and understanding of it. And people are critical. We have 2 sisters that work for us that we've known since they were honestly newborns, and just they're the culture, it's all the same. I mean, how you're treated, that's been a really excellent experience. And the other thing I would say is I've got somebody in the back end, because there's really two operations, if you will, because you think of operations, purchasing, and accounting at that level. I mean, making sure products in play and you have the things that you need. And then the other thing is what happens in the back end. There's receiving, shipping, warehousing, and you know, we've been through several people and have landed on a gentleman that's really, really excellent at that, and he has a couple of people under him. So, yeah, it's a little bit of a development, because what you find is that everybody multitasks in a huge way. I mean, you're all of those things I just described and then some when you open a business. You have to recognize when it's time to let your talent focus and say, all right, we're going to develop a job description here and we're going to fill that.
I like your story about starting the company, but walk through the time frame from what'd you say? It was her idea to look at this brick and mortar that we had. How long of a process was that in the business plan that you had to go through?
Okay, so I will be dead honest about the business plan. We just jumped in. I mean, like I said, I still have it. I still have the opening spreadsheet that said, hey, here are the income streams, some grills, some sauces, some fuel, some this and that. And that's always kind of fun to go back and look at. But my wife finally said, let's do this. And so in the spring of '09, we took a trip to Kansas City. We looked around. And I probably drugged my feet as much as anyone looking at spaces, and she was very certain she wanted to be in the Midtown, if we could call Delano Midtown, because she wanted people to feel like I want one location. She knew that for sure, and she wanted people to feel like, oh, I can get there if I want to get there. And finally, and this worked out extremely well, we ended up in a location at 615 West Douglas. We were there for about 15 months, and we needed I told my landlord, I said, we're going to have to move. And he said, let me kick the renter out next door because I'm chasing my rent payments. And so that allowed us to stay in that facility for 4 years. But yeah, so that was it. And we developed the products that we were going to populate the store with, if you will. And by the lease was signed July 1st, 30 days to turn the space. August 1st, we're in business.
I think we got time for one more.
My question was the same as.
Oh, okay. All right.
I was just going to say if you were going to start a store and you don't have a manufacturing,
Mm-hmm.
do you keep those separate? Do you have to have a manufacturing? Would you suggest building something?
You want to know, I was thinking of writing a book. I hate to let it out here, but honest to goodness, 31 years of manufacturing is the grind. There's nothing tougher. I wouldn't recommend that ever. It is, and I don't want to discourage somebody with a great idea. And I've got a few young men. They've worked for me for 15 years. They were really young when I hired them, but it's in their blood. I mean, it's just kind of you can't quit, right? But if you want to be successful in brick and mortar, this is one thing, and this is important to know. You have to have some vendors that it is a two-way street. They need you, you need them. They take care of you, you take care of them. And I mean, if you can do that, you cannot be reduced to a me too. I mentioned Traeger Grills earlier. That family sold that business 10 years ago to a venture capital company, and I'm telling you, the production went to China. The only thing that mattered was volume. Their quality was horrible. It's better now, but it's still not great. And they didn't care. They would just take the losses on that, and they just kept putting them out. Well, in Wichita, I don't really know, but probably a minimum 20 places you can go buy a Traeger. How would you ever have a a business that's built around a product like that. You can't. So the relationships that you build with your vendors are critical.
All right, Don, I know there are more questions. I've got 6 or 7 more I cover, but we're out of time, and especially given that I got to get to a place where I can find a seat at the bar for the game. So anyway, thanks, Don. We really
Mark,
appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you very much.